Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight, the government hoping for a tourism rebound by late October. The police commissioner weighs in on the force reporting the highest numbers in COVID-19 cases. Plus, back to school VAT week begins next Monday.
Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to Our News and thank you for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquin. As the phased reopening of businesses begins again, the country is also being prepared to reopen for international tourism by late October or early November, according to Deputy Prime Minister Peter Turnquest. He insisted tourists are not to blame for the country's second wave of COVID-19. Jasmine Brown has more.
The Deputy Prime Minister spoke to the press outside Cabinet, where he gave an update on the country's economy as well as the travel restrictions. Turnquest says the country's #1 industry cannot remain dormant, and for that reason, plans are underway to get it back on track in just over 2 months.
From the Ministry of Finance's perspective, we've always said that we're looking towards a late October, early November opening, and that's kind of where our budget forecast puts us. And so we'll see. Hopefully, we'll be able to meet that date.
Prior to the July 1st reopening of the borders, there were 104 cases of COVID-19 confirmed in the Bahamas. Since July 8th, nearly 1,700 cases have been recorded in the country in what health officials have called the second wave of infections. While the government required tourists to test negative for COVID-19 within a 10-day window of traveling, Bahamians going on short international trips were not required to test, but instead to quarantine upon arriving back in the country. When asked about concerns that a tourism sector reboot will result in a new surge in COVID-19 cases, as the country's first reopening in July did, Turnquest insisted that tourists were not necessarily the problem.
Less than 1% of those new infections came from foreigners. They were primarily domestic cases or persons who traveled and brought back the virus. So we can put in place strategies to quarantine or mitigate the risk that the tourists would provide. But it is us that we have to be concerned about. Obviously, we don't want to have a situation where foreigners can come and go and Bahamians can't come and go.
As it relates to domestic travel, he said domestic borders will likely not open for inter-island travel for another few weeks. Meantime, Turnquest insisted the government is hoping to get the domestic economy up and running soon.
Hopefully, as we open up, we'll get the domestic economy start to go again. Hopefully we'll not have any cause to have to go back into a curfew situation or lockdown situation. That will allow some domestic activity to happen, people to go back to work. It's still going to be a few weeks, I imagine, before we open the borders even for domestic travel, much less for international travel.
Asked that the government is considering a reduction in VAT to help local businesses, Turnquest said it's not feasible at this time, noting that the government has to collect revenue.
The reality is that we are not receiving much revenue at all.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Well, amid fears of another lockdown, businesses and residents breathed a sigh of relief on Monday following the Prime Minister's announcement that there is no need for a hard lockdown. As they welcomed the ease restrictions, Bahamians warned each other to be responsible. Berthany McDermott reports.
Local business owners and residents are applauding the Prime Minister's decision to allow the majority of businesses to reopen effective 5 a.m. Monday, August 31st. Owner of Dorset's Food Center, Donald Dorset, said he feels the complete about-face was a result of fierce backlash after Dr. Hubert Minnis announced the complete lockdown with no notice last week.
He doesn't want to continue to anger certain sections of the people. So he has decided to do what he thinks is the right thing for him to do, for him to have peace in his mind.
On Monday, restaurants will be allowed to provide outdoor dining, curbside services, takeaway and delivery services. Construction activities and hardware stores will continue as usual. Other retailers will be permitted to offer curbside and delivery services, while offices and other businesses will be permitted to operate with physical distancing restrictions. Chamber of Commerce CEO Jeffrey Beckel says he was glad to see the Prime Minister listen to recommendations.
Now that we are here, we're now having to begin the process of adapting adapting our business models, adapting our internal training mechanisms to ensure that we can adapt to the changes necessary to operate our business in the COVID environment and be able to deliver those services safely and effectively to our waiting customers.
Melvern Saunders also supports the move, but her main concern is access to public transportation, which was not mentioned during Monday's press conference.
We who have no ride, no car, we need to bus them up on the road. Because every time I come, I have to pay $25. And I weekend.
With the easing of restrictions, these residents say Bahamians need to be responsible.
All I am saying too is for us as citizens to be responsible. Seriously, okay? No one can take your health in hand except you.
We have to learn how to work along with this virus, because it's not going anywhere anytime soon. So we must follow the Prime Minister. His protocol is we come right back to wearing your mask, hand sanitize, keep your social distance, and we all will be okay.
All of us in the media, in the business sector, in the private sector, whether you're a service provider or a customer, we then have to be compliant.
For the persons with their businesses, I feel like they should be allowed to do the curbside. But as far as the overall lifting, I don't think it was the right decision at this time, because we still don't have a good handle on the cases.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
The government's promised back-to-school VAT holiday will begin next Monday, August 31st, and will run to Sunday, September 20th. In a statement, Deputy Prime Minister Peter Turnquist said the purpose of the tax relief measure is to make back-to-school shopping less expensive for parents while providing support to local companies. The VAT holiday will cover school supplies and uniforms, backpacks, electronic book readers, as well as snacks. The full list will be made available on the Department of Inland Revenue's website. Imported items are not included under the VAT holiday. Well, the Ministry of Health has identified the Royal Bahamas Police Force as the occupation presenting the highest number of COVID-positive employees. And tonight, the Commissioner of Police is speaking out, saying there was a clear breakdown in communication between health officials and police.
Each red represents a case and a blue a contact. Next. In New Providence Police Force, you can see how COVID spread in our uniform branches.
According to Ministry of Health data, 93 COVID-19 cases on the police force on Grand Bahama and New Providence resulted in 125 contacts. The cases were identified between July 1st and August 23rd. The new data comes less than a week after Police Commissioner Paul Roll said around 85 police officers were in quarantine, but could not say how many tested positive. And now Roll is giving a reason. He says a breakdown in communication between the Ministry of Health and the police force resulted in him not being told who or how many of his officers tested positive.
I lined last night, like everybody else, okay? Nobody from health called me and say to me that we have this amount of persons infected. I was not afforded that courtesy. What I knew is from officers who report to me that they tested positive. I know that. 53
positive cases on the police force were in New Providence, with 30 being the result of high-risk exposure to the virus within the police force. Roll says the only way he's been finding out some of his officers tested positive is when they tell him. But even getting their results has been an issue, with some waiting weeks.
We've had instances where officers have to wait for up to 2 weeks before we can get results back.
After they get results? Wow.
Yeah. And then, so if they're taking that long to know that they're positive, and then to get the results back to say, you know, to do the contact tracing, I mean, you could understand why, how that is very easy to happen.
When the second wave of cases started on Grand Bahama in July, dozens of officers were placed in quarantine after potential exposure. 40 of them tested positive.
The job that we do in policing it's a sacrificial job. And it's a labor of love, because we have a service, we've taken an oath, and this is that oath now playing out.
Roll says the work that the nearly 4,000 police officers do requires a lot of interaction with civilians, but they're being as safe as possible. He's done things like made way for the installation of plexiglass in police stations and spent over $250,000 on sanitizing stations.
It's not an easy feat for us, but we are committed to keeping the public safe. We are committed to keeping our officers safe. And we'll continue to do what is required. I spare no expenses.
Well, Minister of National Security Marvin Dames brushed off criticisms over the spread of COVID-19 among members of uniformed branches. Dames downplayed the Ministry of Health's recent revelation that a large number of uniformed officers were exposed to COVID-19 in the workplace. Jasmine Brown has more.
These agencies are very large agencies, and they're just a microcosm of our wider society. And so it is expected, therefore, that given the nature of what they do, and the fact that they are a microcosm of our wider society, that we expect that there would be some numbers within the ranks of these agencies.
The National Security Minister's comments came after it was revealed that the large majority of people exposed to COVID-19 in the workplace were members of the uniformed branches. According to data provided at a Ministry of Health press conference on Monday, uniformed officers were exposed to COVID while at work, while the majority of them were police officers. Health officials indicated that 93 police officers in New Providence and Grand Bahama contracted COVID-19 since July 1st, resulting in 126 contacts being identified in the police force. In the defense force, there were 11 confirmed COVID-19 cases on New Providence. Dames also revealed outside cabinet that the defense force has more than a dozen active cases, but only a small number of those cases in the police force are still active.
I believe that the defense force has some 18 active cases, and the police force 3 active cases. And so as far as the police force is concerned, those numbers have trended downward significantly. And the prison, I believe, they may have had 2 overall cases. And so when you look at it across the board, these agencies are doing extremely well.
Dames also insisted that from the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, law enforcement agencies had personalized plans to operate efficiently and effectively. He said while the agencies have been impacted, he believes the numbers are manageable. He also disagreed with critics who have accused police of being careless.
You think people go out there to intentionally get COVID? Some people are reckless, yes. But I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that for 1 second.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
All right, thanks, Jasmine. More news on the way, but here's a first look at weather with meteorologist Greg Thompson. Good night, Greg.
Thanks, Kyle. I'm meteorologist Greg Thompson with your first look at weather, being brought to you tonight by Downey. Outside our studios, we have breezy conditions with a temperature of 86 degrees Fahrenheit. Your winds out of the southeast at 11 knots. Feels like temperature around 91 degrees Fahrenheit. Satellite-wise, the breezy conditions continued around the islands today as high pressure to the north of us settles across our area. An upper level low south of us still supporting a few showers as well. That's your first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still to come.
All right, thanks, Greg. Still to come, the Prime Minister claims New Providence residents took COVID-19 to Acklands. Plus, Potters Key and Arawak Key vendors prepared to reopen. That's coming up when Our News returns.
We know you missed us. We missed you too. Bowflex Barbie here, and I'm so excited to let you know that Morning Moves is coming back to RTV Channel 212. Starting September 7th, every Monday and Wednesday at 6 and 9 a.m. and Saturday at 8 and 10 a.m., you'll get to sweat with me right from the comfort of your home. Be sure to tune in for my fun and exciting workouts and health tips from our wellness experts. Join me for Morning Moves, the perfect way to start your day.
You're watching Our News. Welcome back. Vendors on Arawak Key and Potters Key wasted no time in preparing their restaurants and stalls following the announcement they would be allowed to reopen next week. They warned customers to adhere to safety guidelines when patronizing their businesses. Georgia Bain reports.
After months of closure, there were mixed reviews from vendors here at Potters Key Dock and Arawak Key, but the overall sentiment was gratitude following the Prime Minister's speech that now allows them to operate with restricted measures coming this Monday. Some vendors and stall owners were hard at work today preparing for Monday's opening, which will allow them to provide outdoor dining, curbside pickup, and takeaway services. Manager of Arawak Key, Paul Willie, said stall owners are grateful to get back to work.
The vendors and the restaurant owners has been losing revenue every day, So this is a good time for them to rebound.
We met Elvin Smith, owner of Island Life Restaurant and Bar, making some structural changes to his restaurant. He said while he won't be able to bring on full staff just yet, he's appreciative.
We felt great about that, knowing that we'll be able to reopen, not on a full basis, but any little space that we have that we can operate on to try to keep the business going is nice. We have everything in place, for the curbside.
Meanwhile, Bruno Minnis, the owner of Bruno's Seafood and Steak Bar, appealed to the competent authority to hold businesses individually accountable for breaking COVID-19 protocols instead of closing down the entire area. He also called for additional relaxed restrictions.
I think the government needs to make some kind of stimulus package or some grant for us to be able to start up. Listen, our first lockdown, everyone on Arawaki didn't even came back to work. This time it's even worse. And I think now we need some kind of help.
Over at Porter's Key, Kenneth McKinsey was all smiles as he prepared his restaurant. He said his phone rang off the hook last evening with employees excited to get back to work.
I'll give everybody like 2 days because we all was in this together. And it don't make sense that they've been with me all through the good times and the tough times. I could tell them, well, I only need 1 person or 2 person.
As stalls get set to reopen, owner of Tall Boys Kong Stall, Dwayne Bastian, urged customers to follow the rules when on Porter's Key to prevent another forced closure.
The vendors wasn't making anything on, some hardship times right now. So, like I say, thank you to him for, having the vendors them to open. So, like I say, I'm appealing to the general public again to, practice social distance and let's follow the laws.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Georgia Bay.
Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis placed the blame for the presence of COVID-19 on Acklins and Crooked Island squarely in the lap of dozens of New Providence residents yesterday. When asked whether he has any regrets about last week's abrupt lockdown and subsequent amendment, Minnis gave a lengthy 8-minute response explaining that 157 people from New Providence traveled to Acklins only hours before stringent inter-island travel restrictions took effect.
They said over 100 individuals entered their shores for a homecoming event. My exact words to them, they called me. My exact words to them was to stay away from them as much as possible because I do not know whether they are transporting the virus with them, but there is that possibility. And if you came in contact with them, your island will be infected.
Minnis said some of those people eventually made it over to Crooked Island and that he understands some planned on making it as far as Mayaguana. He said his rationale behind the abrupt lockdown was to protect those family islanders.
What I want to say is that information would have come to us afterward that there were numerous boats already prepared with the relevant material, fuel, etc., ready to leave and head to the family islands. They were on their way to Long Island and others. And that was why such decision was made, to protect Long Island.
In other news, a man arrested in connection with a drugstore robbery was among 3 men brought before the magistrate's court on separate matters today. Jillian Gray has more.
It was a busy day in court as several men were brought before the magistrate's court for charges ranging from forgery to armed robbery. Miguel Francis, also known as Smokey, was the first to stand before Magistrate Subusola Swain. He's charged with 1 count of armed robbery. According to police reports, a lone gunman entered Paluma's drugstore shortly before 2 p.m. on August 4th, 2020. The cashier, Tavon Davis, was robbed of an undetermined amount of cash and the suspect escaped in an unknown direction. Francis was not required to enter a plea to the charge and will return to court on October 15th, where the Crown will proceed by the way of a voluntary bill of indictment. 31-year-old Theodis Kemp, in the green plaid shirt and blue pants, then took the stand to answer to 4 firearm charges. Kemp was charged with 2 counts of possession of a firearm with intent to endanger life, possession of an unlicensed firearm, and possession of ammunition. On Monday, July 20th, 2020, Kemp allegedly was in possession of a .9mm pistol with 5 live rounds of .9mm ammunition. According to court dockets, Kemp, a resident of Fox Hill, endangered the life of Christopher Rose and Garonique Bodie on that date. Kemp was not required to enter a plea and was remanded until October 15, 2020, when he will return to court for the presentation of a voluntary bill of indictment. 55-year-old Michael Thomas, in the blue striped shirt and tan pants, was charged with 1 count of possession of forged currency notes. On August 22, 2020, Thompson was allegedly found in possession of 3 fake $100 Bahamian bills. Thompson allegedly got the funds from a male who he sold his car to for $1,800. He pled guilty to the charge, and the fisherman was fined by Magistrate Andrew Forbes $500 or 6 months in prison. The fake bills were ordered destroyed. Reporting for Our News, I'm Jillian Gray.
When Our News comes back from the break, the singing bishop's prayers for plates are answered. Stay tuned.
We know you missed us. We missed you too. Bowflex Barbie here, and I'm so excited to let you know that Morning Moves is coming back to our TV channel 212. Starting September 7th, every Monday and Wednesday at 6 and 9 a.m. and Saturday at 8 and 10 a.m., you'll get to sweat with me right from the comfort of your home. Be sure to tune in for my fun and exciting workouts and health tips from our wellness experts. Join me for Morning Moves, the perfect way to start your day.
President of the Bahamas Public Service Union, Kimsley Ferguson, is calling the Prime Minister's decision to reopen the country and ease COVID restrictions a step in the right direction.
Well, I was really very impressed yesterday with quite a number of things that the Prime Minister indicated. I was excited and impressed with the fact that the country is going to reopen, and so it means that some attention can be given to the progress of our economy.
During a press conference on Monday, Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis advised that health officials no longer recommended a hard lockdown. As a result, he said many businesses will be allowed to reopen effective 5 a.m. on Monday with appropriate physical distancing measures. Ferguson says while it was no doubt a tough decision, he believes it was the right one.
As we reopen the country, we're going to have to take responsibility ourselves to safeguard and ensure that we do our part in this fight against COVID-19.
Well, one day after singing Bishop Prophet Lawrence Roll revealed he was in desperate need of plates for his Anglerson-based soup kitchen, the well-known religious leader got a major surprise today.
I was wondering, I said, Lord, where am I going to get plates from? I just come off the phone speaking with somebody, and they were saying, do I know these people who are feed so they can bring their own plate? I don't know who I feeding, whether they come from Andres or watermelon land or muskmelon land. I don't know. And all of a sudden, they tell me a while ago, somebody is in the yard, Neptune, a young man from Neptune, my God, new business. And look, the plates that he brought to me before we interview him. Oh my God, you could cook an elephant and put in these. I'm telling you, my God, you could cook, look here, oh my God.
On Monday, Roll told Our News it was becoming increasingly difficult to afford sturdy plates for the hundreds of free meals he gives out each week. He said not only are the plates expensive, they are also often less than sturdy, with the bottom dropping out. But Roll says he doesn't believe that will be an issue with the 400 plates donated by Neptune Compostables, a company that specializes in selling plastic-free products.
He did send a message out that the bottom's dropping out. These feel so hard, it looked like I could. It looked like I could sail right from Nassau into Miami in one of these. These look like I could sail in these. Yes, sir. Just like a dinghy. See? Yes, sir. Man. Man, these bad, boy.
Still ahead, gym owners frustrated over prolonged closures. That's coming up when Our News returns.
Hey Rev customer, did you know that you can change and add multiple credit or debit cards to your online payment? Simply log into my.rev.bs, sign into your My account, click Pay Now, then enter your card details, and click Save to File. It's that simple. We are committed to providing you with excellent, reliable service no matter what. Stay connected with Rev, anywhere, anytime.
As local fitness establishments continue to remain closed, gym owners continue to be frustrated as despite every safety measure being taken, they continue to be shut down. J-Line Fitness, like others, met every standard put forward by the Ministry of Health. Its owner, Jennifer Gadet, says they took every precaution possible. Personal trainer Nato Dean has every confidence gym owners and trainers can police their environment. Dean also encouraged officials to tour the facilities before making decisions.
And that's a look at news. We throw it back to meteorologist Greg Thompson for the extended weather forecast.
Thanks again, Kyle. I'm meteorologist Greg Thompson with your second look at weather, being brought to you tonight by Infogroup. Laura, now a hurricane, continues to move away from the area in the Gulf of Mexico, allowing winds across the islands to relax. An upper level low continues to shift west across the area. That will trigger a few showers as it does so. The tropics remain quiet now, and tropical cyclone formation is not expected during the next 5 days. Your boating forecast for the night through tomorrow for all areas. Winds are going to be out of the east to southeast at around 15 knots. Seas running 3 to 5 feet over the open waters. Here's a look now at your national forecast. Now we'll look at your extended forecast through Sunday. That's a look at your weather. Make it a great night, everyone.
Thank you for joining us for Our News tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Kyle Joaquin. Remember, you can catch Our News on the go with the RevGo Play app. Have a good Tuesday evening, Bahamas.